Good morning, everyone. So my wife and I and our baby boy were driving here today, and my wife asked me, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I don't know, honey, what should I talk about? She said, we should tell everybody how great I am. So we'll start with that. Speaking of our baby boy, there is no better reaffirmation of the importance of life than having a baby. It's been a blessing for Christine and I learn new things every day, and I must say that it makes me all the more proud to say that this party protects life, and I know that that's what we all believe in, and there's a distinction between this party and many in the other political party. I start, and I don't want to steal anyone's thunder if someone else was going to use this passage, but Proverbs 13:22, which is right on the front of everyone's handout this morning, says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Well, the federal government isn't doing that right now, and that's not the fault of Congressman Meehan, Congressman Pitts, or Congressman Gerlach, or frankly any of the Republican members of Congress. It's this president and the Democratic Senate and the Democratic House of Representatives that refuse to put forth serious policy proposals to make our entitlement programs there for future generations. In addition to the amount of money that we borrow every single day, and the fact that we continue to dump money into many programs that have not proven effective really separates, I think, the Republican Party from the Democratic Party. So we need to elect a Republican congressman to the 6th Congressional District now that Congressman Gerlach has decided to retire. As much because we need people that are going to be serious about solving tomorrow's problems today, because it's not getting any better until we start making the tough decisions to get our spending under control and to look at government programs and say, just spending more money isn't a solution. It's just not. And as a Republican candidate for office, what I plan to do throughout this campaign is to present myself as a pragmatic problem solver. We know that the key to winning this district is to be seen as someone who is open-minded, who's willing to listen to others, who's not going to be too terribly doctrinaire, or throw up a lot of fiery rhetoric. That's a way to lose. A way to win is to be a principled conservative, to use common sense, to have people feel that you're willing to listen to them, but when it comes time to make the tough decisions, be on the right side of the issues. And I feel that I will be on the right side of the issues, and I was with Gwen in the Action Executive Committee the other night, and I'm perfectly willing to answer any questions that anyone throws at me. But we are in a very serious time in our nation's history. I know everyone here agrees with that, where we're either going to have more and more regulation and more spending and more government in our lives. And that's not what our country was founded on. That's not what we believe in. But that's where this president, unfortunately, thinks that we should head. He literally just presses his thumbprint down on them, and they do what he says. And if he can't get things out of the Republican House, he does as much by executive order as he possibly can. But this will ultimately come down to, I hope, myself as a Republican candidate against a Democratic candidate. And what I do every single day now is, well, I'm county commissioner, but when I'm not being county commissioner, is to focus on this race and prepare and organize and make fundraising calls and do outreach to coalition members. I certainly welcome the support of anyone and everyone in this room as the campaign unfolds, because they are going to throw everything and the kitchen sink at me come the fall. And I'm pretty sure most, or if not all of it, won't be true. But in politics, you get to say what you want to say, and that's what they're going to do. But I will run with a sense of pride and a sense of purpose, and I will put my best foot forward, and I hope to make all of you proud throughout this campaign. And I want to thank everyone in this room for the support they've provided myself and all the county candidates in past elections, and I'm looking forward to this upcoming election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, our speaker is going to be Kyler Walker from he's running for Pennsylvania State Rep of the 158th District. Kyler?
Thank you, Chuck. As Chuck said, I'm running for the State House of Representatives in the 158th District. It's an honor to be with you this morning. For those of you who are in the district, I hope to be your representative in Harrisburg, because I believe that if we put the values that we share into practice, we can truly make a positive difference in the lives of all the citizens of Chester County. I'm a lifelong resident of the county. I'm a small business owner. I'm a corporate lawyer who represents employers. For the last 17 years, I've served as a township supervisor in East Marlboro. And I also have experience in both federal and state government, including having worked in the Reagan administration in the 1980s. In thinking about my remarks today, it occurs to me there's a brief story that I could share with you to highlight some of my concerns about the approach that the Democrats and the liberals take to public policy. I'll tell you the shorter version because you're going to hear from a lot of people today. But there are two Russian serfs living in the hinterlands of Russia, eking out an existence for themselves and their families. And one day, one of them is visited by his fairy godmother, who grants him one wish. And he wishes for a goat so that he can provide milk and cheese for his family. Well, he's very happy with his goat, but his neighbor is resentful that he now hasn't had his quality of life improved, and he's still dealing with the same challenges that he's always faced. Well, after some time, his fairy godmother comes and says that she understands his frustration and that she's there to solve his problem, and she'll give him one wish. And he says, "That's great. I wish that you would kill my neighbor's goat." Well, obviously that's intended to be humorous, but there's a serious aspect to it because I think it reflects the difference in the way President Obama and we would approach issues such as the persistent income inequality that we face in this country. And I worry that President Obama would approach the problem by tearing down those who've had some measure of success, as opposed to lifting up those who have not. That is not the American dream. The American dream is based on equal opportunity, not equal outcomes. And you don't strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. As Republicans, as conservatives, as Christians, we believe in a set of values that I think, if put into practice, serve everybody in society. It's not us versus them. Our programs, our policies, our values are based on compassion, and compassion for those who are most in need. Because through our policies, those who are most in need have the opportunity to break the cycle of intergenerational independence on government programs and poverty, and to lead lives of self-sufficiency and independence. Our compassion is also shown in our positions on issues such as freedom of religion and the protection of life. And I'm very proud that last summer, my law firm stepped up, and as a sign of our commitment to compassion and the protection of life, we took up the cause of Sarah Murnigan. Sarah was the patient at Children's Hospital who was denied the opportunity for a life-saving double lung transplant because the Obama administration decided that as an 11-year-old, she was not even entitled to be considered for the procedure. Much the same way the Obama administration would treat an 11-week-old fetus as not being entitled to protections. Representing Sarah on a pro bono basis, our firm was able to obtain an emergency order from a federal judge in Philadelphia, and Sarah was placed on the donor list and her life was saved. That's an example of what we can accomplish when we practice compassionate Christian values. And that's an example of why I want to serve in state government. And I'll just leave you with a passage from Scripture that reflects my views on how our elected officials should govern. In the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, we are told to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God. If we are guided by these principles in everything that we do in government, based on humility, kindness, and justice, I believe that we will be able to say that we have faithfully and well served our constituents. Thank you.
I made a big mistake and I forgot somebody. We have with us Harry Lewis, who's running for the new 74th District. Harry, come on up because we want to hear from you as well. My apologies, Harry. It's that new district that got me. Our next speaker is Rogers Howard, who's also running for the same district as Kyler Walker. And we met with Rogers and Kyler the other day to hear from both of them. Rogers?
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. We, as a state, face a great opportunity. Every day lately, you've been hearing about the success in Wisconsin, right? When Scott Walker took office, he faced an annual $3.6 billion budget deficit. Today he has a $900 and some odd million budget surplus. They are going to reduce property taxes. They are going to reduce income taxes. They have more teachers, smaller class sizes, and their property taxes have not risen. They have reduced regulation on business, and there's an economic boom in Wisconsin. And what of Pennsylvania? We're raising taxes. This is not a Republican agenda. You know, when Republicans govern as conservatives, when they present the conservative message, they have been responsible for the greatest economic expansions in the United States, starting with Calvin Coolidge and his Secretary of Treasury, Andrew Mellon. They reduced taxes, they cut spending, and they regularized the budget process. And we have a name for that period of time. It's called the Roaring '20s. People were dancing in the street because the economy was booming. An example of Republicans not governing as conservatives would be Herbert Hoover, following Calvin Coolidge. So Herbert Hoover, together with two Republican senators, one from Washington, one from Oregon, passed the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, which cut American exports by 50% in something like 6 months and was the beginning of the Depression. Right? So we need to govern as conservatives to present the conservative message. We can reduce taxes and pay for our roads. They're doing it in Wisconsin. They're doing it in Indiana. We need to do it here. The strength of the Republican Party is to be conservative. When we are conservative, when we pass conservative acts, when we present the conservative message, we remain in power. When we do not, we lose. Ronald Reagan, followed by George Bush raising taxes, followed by Clinton. So my message is, it's possible to do it here. It was done in Wisconsin. There is no more union state than Wisconsin, where public service unions were born. There is no more Democrat state than Wisconsin. There is no more opposition to conservatism than there was in Wisconsin. And yet they got it accomplished, as in Indiana. We can do that here. That's what I would work towards. Because I want to expand the economy of Pennsylvania so that there are jobs for my grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Rogers. Our next speaker is John Lawrence. And John, what district you running in? 13th. John?
Thanks. We on? Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Very good to be here this morning. I appreciate everyone getting up on a very cold and windy morning. It's good to be here. My name is John Lawrence. I serve in the 13th Legislative District, which is most of southern and western Chester County. I've served 2 terms, and I'll be running for a 3rd coming this year, and I certainly would appreciate the support of everyone in this room. I see I've already lost a couple minutes off my 3 minutes to talk, so I'll keep it brief. But there's 2 things I'd like to talk about. There's a lot of things I could talk about some of the things that have been accomplished in the last couple of years. But this, I've been part of a team over the last 2 terms that has moved an agenda forward on the issue of life in response to some tremendously disturbing things that came forward that I think everyone knows about in the room here out of Philadelphia. We were able to move forward significant pro-life legislation that has had a real impact on the number of clinics in Pennsylvania and frankly on women's health in Pennsylvania. So that's something that I'm proud of, and I'm glad to be part of a team that's been able to move that forward. Also, I've been part of a team that's passed 3 on-time budgets. We're spending less today than Rendell spent in his last year of office. I've held some pretty solid fiscal conservative positions, voting against my own party at times on the issuance of new debt. Pennsylvania has a lot of debt, and we're certainly not in as bad a shape as some of the states, particularly maybe Illinois, where I think there's a famous politician who's from Illinois, serves in the state senate there. We're not in as bad a shape as they are, but we face significant financial challenges as a Commonwealth, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. One of the big challenges we have to face in Harrisburg, and I'm sure some of my colleagues will be talking about this, is the state pension systems, which are CSRS and PSRS. Those are for state workers and state teachers. The difference between what we've got in the pot and what we need to keep all the promises we've made is $49 billion. That's a tremendous number. The pensions, put another way, the pension systems are funded at 69%. And there's really not a lot of good solutions out there, right? I'd be in favor of moving to 401ks tomorrow for government employees. I myself have declined the state pension. But when you look at the fact that we still have to keep the promises we've already made, some difficult decisions have to be made. So that's one of the big challenges we're facing as a Commonwealth. I'm happy to step up to the plate. Representative Camp, who I see is not here this morning, has been a leader in that regard as well, and I'm sure he would appreciate your support as well. So with that being said, I'll be happy to take any questions when we're at the, and looks like they just cut my mic off there, so I guess I'm done. Thank you.
That wasn't a hint, John. It was just, yeah, I stepped on the court. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here because I think it's appropriate. And I'm going to ask Becky Corbin to come up now. Just the way we put the schedule together. But so Becky, would you please give us your insight for a minute?
Sure, Chuck. Great. I'm not sure why I'm out of order, but I'll be sandwiched by my two colleagues. That's fine with me. I'm Becky Corbin. I am in my first term as the state representative for the 155th District, which currently is in the central part of Chester County. I am moving north into Spring City and part of Phoenixville and East Pikeland Township, and losing the southern end of my district to a whole new House seat, the 74th in Chester County. And like Representative Lawrence said before me, I'm part of the team that certainly moved forward on some pro-life legislation. The most notable to me was House Bill 818, and as a member of the Health Committee with Representative Lawrence, we faced an awful lot of debate on that bill. It was a good piece of legislation. It moved ahead, and I'm glad that we were able to further that and keep funding away from abortion. Pensions, as we all know, are a big thing. John already addressed that. I'm just thinking of things that have happened in my first year, and the first thing is, it's hard to believe it's only been 2 years since I was here before. But after 1 year in office, I have taken every opportunity I possibly can to go to every meeting, everything available to me to learn more, and hopefully in my second term, I'll be able to be more proactive as far as passing legislation. Although I'm proud to say that I recently, on Tuesday, Governor Corbett signed my first piece of legislation into law as Act 3 of 2014, and it's a piece of legislation that deals with breast cancer and consent forms. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to give a plug for women as the only woman in the Chester County delegation. I'd like to see more women in Harrisburg, not from Chester County, because you know, we've got a great team here. But we're losing a couple women this time around, and we're low in numbers. But I'm, as you know, not a speaker. I'm not. Mark Single, who was former lieutenant governor of our state, said to me recently in Harrisburg, you know Becky's not a politician, because when somebody hands her a microphone, she gives it to the person sitting beside her. So with that, I will give my 1 minute to Representative Truitt. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. And with that, I'm going to bring up our own Dan Truitt, right from this area, and Dan's running again, and we're glad to have him here. Dan?
Thank you, Chuck. And thank you all for the invitation to be here today. It's a pleasure to address this group. As you know, I'm Dan Truitt. I represent East Goshen, Westchester Borough, and portions of East Bradford. The district is changing a little bit. I'm losing, sadly, East Bradford and portions of West Goshen to pick up Westtown, Birmingham, and Thornbury. And I'm going to say we need to call the police because Ryan stole part of my speech. But a few years back, I was somebody who was very frustrated with state government. People ask me all the time, you know, you had a good job, a good life, why in the world did you do this? And I say, you know, I really got fed up with the government stealing my kids' money and then spending it on the stupidest possible things. So when I was asked to run for state representative a few years ago, at first it was kind of a knee-jerk kind of thing. Yeah, sure, I'll do it. And I got into it, and you know, history worked out the way it did. I ended up winning the 2010 election by 214 votes. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my district. My district is somewhere between 53 and 56% pro-choice. And I'm pro-life, and I'm unapologetic about it. I don't mind the fact that every campaign, in 2010 and again in 2012, they tried even harder. They go out there and they try to paint me as an extremist nut because I'm pro-life. Well, just about everybody in this room, I'm sure, is pro-life. We're not extremists. But I've always believed that the Lord's not going to let me lose an election because I'm pro-life, so I move ahead onto other issues. In the 2012 election, I ended up running in the same district with more money being dumped into my opponent's campaign than the prior time. And we won by 900 votes, partially thanks to efforts of folks in this room and committee members who worked hard for me. But just the fact that I go out there every day reminding myself that as a state representative in Harrisburg, I don't just represent conservatives, I don't just represent Tea Party people, I represent 63,000 people. And some of them are very liberal. And for those people, I listen to what they say and I try to find common ground with them. And that's something that I'm going to ask everybody in this room to do going forward into the coming election, is it can be difficult sometimes when you hear someone express a view that you think is totally wrong or completely opposite of your own view, to still back off and try to treat that person with respect and understand there's probably some reason behind what they believe. Some folks who are very liberal are liberal because they believe they're trying to help people. Now, the solutions that they come up with tend to be very misguided. So what you have to ask yourself is, well, what would Jesus do in this situation? What he would do is try to teach those people. And that's what I try to do every day. I try to approach Democrats and liberals and people at the other end of the political spectrum and at least understand where they're coming from, and then teach them the errors of their ways. A lot of folks will have heard me tell the story over and over again of the broken window. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that today, but if you want to hear about it, that's a story or a parable that explains some economic theory that's very important to helping people understand the conservative approach to economics and fiscal decisions. So with that, I see I'm running out of time, but I want to thank you all for your support in the past and the support that I know I'll get in this election cycle that's coming up. At this point, I don't have a named opponent. I'm sure they'll come up with somebody. I'm sure, again, they're going to try to paint me as an extremist who's a pro-life extremist, but I'm not worried about that. I'm sure with your help and the Lord's help, I'm going to win again, and thank you all.
Thank you, Dan. I believe we're all familiar with the fact that both at the state and federal level, there's been a lot of redistricting and a lot of gerrymandering going on. I hate to use that word, but it's been back and forth in the courts and what have you. And we have with us today Harry Lewis from the new 74th District. And Harry, would you, I know Becky referred to it briefly, but would you tell everybody exactly what your district is so that they understand, okay? It's along with everything else you've got to say in your limited time. Thanks, Harry.
I can be long-winded sometimes. Thank you, Chuck. Good morning, everyone. And I'm really excited to be here this morning. The 74th District runs from Salisbury Township, west of Coatesville, Modena, East Fallowfield, Parksburg, Callan Township, South Coatesville, Coatesville, Callan Township, Downingtown, and part of East Callan. It's an area sort of a long, narrow strip right down the business corridor, Route 30. And it's a very, very populated area, and with Coatesville in the heart of it, and being from Coatesville myself, was very, very important. You're not cutting me off already. I thought it was very important that I really step up to the plate and get involved. A little bit about myself. Former educator and past principal of Coatesville Area Senior High School. Retired in 2006. And everybody says, oh, public education. But I'm very, very adaptable to educating kids. I'm all about young people. I won't dare tell a parent how to educate their child, but I would support and find ways in which they can do that on their individual basis. I am the oldest of 11 siblings, and being in Coatesville, being a minority in Coatesville, and a lot of people know me there, first question I get, Harry, why are you a Republican? And people that don't know me, don't know that much about me, and then I give them the history. And I'll share this with you. I don't share it with a lot of people, but the reason I am a Republican is because of Martin Luther King. He was a Republican. I am one of the few people, and I'm aging myself, I was involved in the first sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina, and almost lost my college scholarship. Went to Winston-Salem State University, and those cities were in Greensboro, North Carolina A&T, when Jesse Jackson was a senior at A&T. And he got me involved. Go back to Winston-Salem, bring everybody back here when those sit-ins started that Saturday morning in 1960, and we're going to start some problems. I was a different attitude then. And we went back, and our coach, Big House Gaines, said, if you leave this campus, we're sending you all home. Well, we were so angry as young men back then, we didn't have that. Well, Martin hung out at A&T with Jesse a few times, and he heard about the 9 of us, and he came to our campus. I'm one of the few people that was very sternly lectured by Dr. King. We were younger guys then. He explained his concept because we were angry. We were ready to throw bricks. And because of the dogs that you see on the documentary, our 9 men were responsible for that because they had no idea what we were going to do. But when he talked to us, gave us information as to why we should not do what we're going to do, it changed me around. And I found out he was Republican, and I joined. A lot of people think I just became a Republican 2 years ago. How wrong they were. But I am a communicator. I want to get Coatesville up to snuff in this richest county in the state of Pennsylvania and help solve and communicate the issues to those people that aren't quite aware of what the real problems are. Thank you.
Now, thank you, Harry. If you all stay here, I've got a few questions for you. But Harry, I'm going to have to talk, Gwen, I think we're going to have you back to hear more about some of your early days. Few quick questions here. And I'm not going to pick on any one of you, so whoever wants to volunteer to answer the question, just let me know. First of all, for your state representatives, did you support, I guess, Dan and John, you're the ones, with the Pennsylvania Transportation Act, which increases gas tax by 28 cents a gallon? And Becky?
We've got a couple of dissenting opinions up here, but that's okay. I was a no vote on the transportation bill. The bottom line is that Pennsylvania has more structurally deficient bridges than any other state in the nation. There are real needs in Pennsylvania with regard to transportation infrastructure, and I'm not ignorant of that. With that being said, the bill that came up for a vote was a 28 cent a gallon tax hike plus a large registration fee increase. Everything you do with PennDOT will cost a lot more. And at the end of the day, you look at the fact that it'll be the most expensive gas tax in the nation. 49 other states have somehow figured out a way to do it for less. There were some good consumer protections in there with regard to the prevailing wage. There was a little bit of an increase. But the way I saw it was that, for my district in particular, there was very little benefit. We were going to be paying a tremendous amount more for gasoline, highest gas tax in the nation. And there were some other details to share afterwards here that I just couldn't bring myself to support. So I was a no on that.
Well, as I'm sure you all know, I was a yes on that vote. I was a yes on that vote, and I'm happy with my decision, and I can sleep at night. Because I believe we are making an investment in public safety, an investment in our economy, rather than an expenditure. And yes, we are paying more money. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to try to flower it up with, oh, it's not really a gas tax increase. It is what it is. We uncapped the oil franchise tax. What the wholesalers choose to do with it is up to them, but we all know we're going to be paying more. It's an investment in our economy. It's an investment in public safety. I had 2 bridges in my district close. They were first weight restricted, and then they shut down with no warning whatsoever. And one of them carried 3,300 cars a day to the Eagleview Corporate Center and to many schools up in Euclid Township and Upper Euclid Township. We were able to get the bridge reopened with a Band-Aid, and we now have about $900,000 allocated towards the rehab of that bridge. And it's important because we're building another school up in that area that's going to need to be able to carry the cars. What can I say? I'm different than my colleagues.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you hear between John and Becky talk about this, you can tell this was by far one of the most complicated votes we've had to take in the last 3 years in the General Assembly. I was hearing over and over from businesses that we needed the infrastructure improvements to get more businesses into the state. Roads and bridges are a core function of state government, so I wanted a transportation bill to pass. I just wasn't happy with the one that they put in front of us. I felt that there were better ways to pay for the needed improvements in roads and bridges than a gas tax. I won't go into all the options that we had available to us potentially. So I held out. I was expecting at some point, the leadership will come to me and say, what can we do to make this acceptable to you? I left the door open right up to the end of saying, I want to, if there's some conservative angle, something that we can put into it to get us there, I was willing to negotiate, but in the end, they got to 113 votes without me, and I was very happy to be able to cast a no vote because that's what my gut was telling me was the right thing to do in that bill.
Thanks, Dan. We only have time for one more question, and so I'm going to take a volunteer from one of you, all right? Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a doozy. And I've got several other questions we just don't have time for. How do you plan to beat your Democratic opponent?
Hard work. That's what we all have to do. We have to knock on doors. We have to raise the money. We need to rely on the good volunteers of the Republican Party and a lot of the coalitions that are generally supportive of conservative candidates, including many in this room. And none of us can take anything for granted. I mean, that's the only way to win elections. And we know that when we don't win elections, we get more taxes and more regulation and government doing things that they shouldn't be in the business of doing. And that's why we're Republicans.
Just like that, I think it's key to go out there and spread the message that we don't hate Democrats, right? You have to make them think that, or make them understand that we respect them as people and we just disagree with them on some issues. We make the mistake, the Democrats do it to us all the time. They denigrate the Tea Party, like the Tea Party members are all irrelevant and they're not to be listened to. Well, you have to listen to everybody. So we have to get out there this year and listen to everybody and make them understand that we hear them.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your coming up and sharing with us, and we're going to move on to our next set of candidates that we've got coming up. So thank you again. Round of applause for everyone. Thank you.